Ladies and gentlemen, Jeanette Nolan has played many parts in her prestigious career, but for many, the one that really stands out is on saying she's allergic to flowers. Another foreboding, I think. Or maybe not, who knows. Now, as the episode goes on, she goes upstairs alone with his wife. He expresses misgivings about her aunt staying with them. Then ominously. It should also be noticed for those who might find it interesting that Jeanette Nolan is wearing ghostly white makeup on her face, which makes her look rather less alive than your typical Lowell auntie, and a set of teeth that she had brought in just for the occasion, if you get it from Scott Skelton's book on Night Gallery. Now, Craig awakes after midnight, comes downstairs, and surprised to find both Joanna and Ada awake, too, again sharing a pot of tea. Ada has herbs to help Joanna sleep, allegedly. Craig secretes one of these herbs away in a cloth, and in the morning gives it to the lab guy at the college, played by Eldon Quick, the former actor who played Captain Sloan on MASH. Professor Heller examines it and says it's seaweed, and adds that folklore says it's sinister witch's weed. He recommends that Craig consult Mr. Smith, or Professor Proteus for further amplification. Craig studies logic and scientific matter, so when Proteus tells him that witch's weed is employed by the aging witch, who's used up her present body to facilitate her entry into assumption of a new young body that she's chosen for herself, he is initially skeptical. Proteus continues to explain that this act takes place during the 12 strokes of midnight during the first full moon after the autumn equinox. Professor Lowell proclaims this is ridiculous. Proteus points out that Lowell always wears the one thing that can't prevent his transaction, a green carnation. Now willing to admit this may be somewhat less than ridiculous, Lowell investigates Aunt Ada's identity and discovers that Ada Quigley recently died. He then confronts Aunt Ada in a manner reminiscent of how Captain Kirk confronted Kodos in the Star Trek episode. Now, the Aunt Ada is confronted, and it said, and she cackles and she raises a thin veil she's wearing over her head, and suddenly three of her appear. Then it's back to just one, foreboding that trouble is going to come if he keeps on investigating. Finally, totally believing what his colleague had to say, Craig calls Proteus while reader cut to Ada simultaneously doing an incantation. Proteus succumbs to a stroke, and Ada appears wickedly to Craig over the stairway banister. Jeanette Nolan again brings the witch in this scene. Now, the next scene has Ferrantino completely shirtless, digging the yard, talking to Joanna, who surprisingly tells him that Aunt Ada is going to an old folks' home after the autumn equinox. Craig insists that Joanna not be out of his sight until midnight tomorrow, and Ada seems to will a telegram delivery man to come and bring a message to Craig, asking him to substitute for another colleague to teach his class that night. Craig explains the deal to Joanna about the whole bit about that Proteus explained to him about the witch transformation to the younger woman's body before the stroke of midnight that night, and she of course laughs. But to ease her fears, she decides to tag along for the near midnight class. When he gives a lecture, we again begin intercutting scenes with Ada at home. She's making a pentagram. Then she gets into Joanne's mind. We get some scary handheld fisheye lens shot of Ada chanting while the stormy night outside brings lightning. A good time now to cite director William Hale, according to Jewel, for his fine work on the episode. Hale's credits are largely on episodic television in the 60s and 70s, but he works as cinematographer to the best of his ability, which extended the episode's cost, but it was well worth it. Now, Joanna, now under Ada's spell, slips out of the classroom unseen by her husband, and he gives his lecture. She drives home. It's 11:50 at this time, and Aunt Ada is waiting expectantly as Joanna arrives. Craig realizes his wife is gone and runs home in a thunderstorm. By the time he gets there inside the house, Ada asks Joanna to take one more sip of the tea she has prepared for her, witch's weed. Craig, this time in his shirt, but is wet and clinging to his body, much to the delight of the homosexuals watching the episode. That's what I've been told. Arrives home to the sight of multiple Adas surrounding Joanna. He remembers what Professor Proteus said regarding carnations. He lights the green one he has with him, throws it at the hit as witches, and they shrink, burn, and die. But this scene is pretty intense as the witches expand and kind of jump him. And a very clever trick that's talked about in the review in Scott Skelton's book. Check it out. We get one final scene. This is Greg driving off the next morning, realizing his is without his daily green carnation. He seems to decide, since Aunt Ada is gone, what me worried. He drives off, while we see Joanna giving a sideline glance, which has a hint of anxiety at the green carnation patch in the yard. A very strong episode, again a good script by Saplinski, and again adapted by the Van Volk story. Tremendous direction and cinematography, and Jeanette Nolan was robbed as a Best Supporting Actress nomination. And ties a lot in, is the initial witch from Jezebel the same witch that is featured here? I think there's a combination as well. Now, for me, Jeanette Nolan plays this part to such a dramatic intent that you really truly believe in real life she's a witch. It's a very strong performance. But just like the Jezebel witch, where she tells the Anne Francis character, give it witch's love, I think it really works. But Michelle Lee and James Ferrantino, very strong as a husband and wife, on screen and off, and it gives it different layers, because we know that it's a fictional piece, but Ferrantino is very, very protective of his wife in all the scenes, and Jeanette Nolan is totally believable as a witch that could steal your soul from 7 days till Sunday. Very strong performance. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the latest of our Night Gallery podcast reviews. If you like what we're doing here, give us a like, comment, or subscribe. Now, season 2 of Night Gallery is the best season of Night Gallery. Check it out. The Blu-ray version, I think there's extras as well, talking about the paintings. Scott Skelton gives some reviews, and talking about the various cinematography tricks that were done to do this episode. It's part of the special extras on the season 2 DVD. And I don't know how they did the multiples. It's an old what they call House of Hammer trick. It's talked about a little bit in the Skelton book. It's quite interesting. And in the promo for the series, that was one of the scenes they took from, where Jeanette Nolan's doing the incantations. It's scary as heck. Thanks for listening. Bye.